Let's continue, shall we? See where this goes. It's been a while. But... Order! Surely not counsel. Drebber was there, in Lowgate Cemetery. Alright. What is all this talk about Mr. Drebber? Is the name significant? Of course, Madame de Spells doesn't know, does she? Yes, it's extremely significant, Madame. Your situation as well, in fact. What situation? What situation? The theft of the Professor waxwork from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man. No! But that would mean... Madame de Spells. It would appear you know the name, Enoch Drebber. Oui. Yes, I know it. But from long ago, in the past. What? Oh my! Good gracious! Explain yourself. Tell us everything you know. Yes, of course. Round 2? The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in the cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single newspaper in London and throughout Great Britain. However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity. His name was never revealed. That is, apart from in one newspaper. The Daily Circus. It is a paper from which comes the article I have already shown the court. You're saying that his full name was only publicized in that article? Goodness me. Yes, here it is. The university student who experienced this shocking event is Mr. Enoch Drebber, disciple of science at the University of London, and a resident of its student dorms. Unbelievable! When I read the article, I went to meet with the man. His discovery of the condemned criminal coming back to life in the cemetery in the dead of night would make a perfect exhibit for my house of horrors, whether it was the truth or not. I see. So you went to meet Mr. Drebber in order to sculpt the waxwork of the man, did you? Exactement. He was studying science at the University of London in those days. He was just a poor student. I paid him £5 to model for the waxwork. And since that time, it has been in my museum to recreate the scene of terror from the cemetery. So, 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about an extraordinary event he'd witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. The public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote that was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals the waxwork model of the executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today. Even though the waxwork's build is a poor match for the victim, and its face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us to 3 days ago, when the birdcage crashed into the Crystal Tower. The birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Mr. Aspen, but the same waxwork. The coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated, Dr. Sith, would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court has seen earlier. Why? Because the waxwork was that of the professor. Is that what you're saying? Dr. Sith put her name to a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive. A criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Drebber. That misconduct was a deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect. Which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used that particular waxwork as the body double. Ooh. Use the professor to dig up this line of inquiry? My lord, this court must summon Dr. Sith to the stand. The defense is determined. Find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber are connected. According to the missive I received this morning from the prosecutor's office, Dr. Sith is unable to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case? She was here earlier. She told us so herself, didn't she? Lord Van Zieks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it. Lord Strongheart? Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. Well, shit. Something happened on the night of that killer's execution 10 years ago. And surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Van Zieks. The prosecution calls for the instructions of that missive to be scrapped. Oh, good call. But Lord Van Zieks, this was issued from the Lord Chief Justice's office.
Objection!
The assigned prosecutor has the final say on policy in any particular trial. In other words, me. Yes! Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Sith both take the stand together. Alright, we're gonna get there. Order, order, order. Very well, I will uphold your request. Bailiff, send a subpoena with immediate effect addressed to Dr. Sith of the Forensic Investigation Team. Woman is compelled to attend on Her Majesty's orders. Alright then, Enoch Drebber and Dr. Sith. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could never have been committed. I'm just a stone's throw away, I can feel it. The truth behind all this is about to come out. Yeah. Oh, hey, you're here too. You're still here. Thank you for your attendance at such short notice, Dr. Sith. I'm disappointed in you, Lord Van Zieks. You completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office. Betrayal is not in my nature, as long as the truth isn't compromised. If it is, if there's even a hint of wrongdoing, then no matter whom it concerns or disgruntles, I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as would any prosecutor worth his salt. Mr. Drebber, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed in your workshop. And Dr. Sith, as the investigating coroner, you were the first one on the scene to examine the victim's body. It's the belief of the defense that you collaborated with each other and were both complicit in this crime. And where's your evidence? Oof. At present, we have no definitive evidence, but we do have a very significant clue. What are you talking about? Oh, the aura of her looking down on us is undeniably powerful. I'm talking, of course, about the waxwork. This model of the killer known as the Professor, who was sentenced to death 10 years ago. You don't need to tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes, and officially pronounced him dead. That remains to be seen. Is that so? According to newspaper reports for the time, on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life. Don't waste my time. And the sole witness to that mysterious event was you, Mr. Drebber, wasn't it? No comment. If what you saw in the graveyard that night 10 years ago wasn't some chilling fiction, but reality, it would make you privy to a very great secret of Dr. Sith. A secret so profound it could compel the coroner to agree to collaborate in your evil scheme, in fact. Mr. Drebber, tell the court. Tell everyone the truth of what you saw that night in Lowgate Cemetery. So he was the student who saw it. You can see the resemblance, actually, can't you? With the man in Madame Tussauds, I mean. Surely he's not going to claim that's really what he saw, especially not after all these years. He was a research student at the University of London, wasn't he? I don't bet like Duke never was his own good if you ask me. What an interesting twist. Mm-hmm. When at the time, not one person would take me seriously. Yet now here we are, 10 years later, and suddenly my story matters, and in a court of law, too. Very well then, if everyone so wishes. Let's be frank. I'll tell you the truth of what happened that night, for what it's worth. That look. So, Mr. Drebber, your testimony, please, about the events of that night, 10 years ago. You will tell the court exactly what you stumbled across in Lowgate Cemetery. Yes, of course. Yes, of course, as you wish. That red highlight. The cemetery 10 years earlier. The reason I was in Lowgate Cemetery at all 10 years ago was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say. Yes, the illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. But thinking back now, I realized that I never actually saw the professor. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist. It was all because of that newspaper article. Wait a minute. You're claiming you didn't actually see the professor now? Of course. You'd have to have a screw loose if you believe the corpse could come back from the dead. But, so you're saying this article is not worth the paper it's printed on? I think that would be just describe it perfectly, yes. Ah. The details of this article aren't true. It nullifies your argument for why Mr. Drebber and Dr. Sith would have been working together. So he's discrediting himself to cripple my argument. Well, tell me, witness. You claim to have been in the cemetery on some auxiliary business. Can you elaborate? No, that's right. Grave robbing, to be precise. As you know, Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison. So among students at the university, it had a reputation for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts. A grave robbing, you say? Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. Of course, I never laid a finger on any valuables buried within the dead. So you're one of the so-called resurrectionists, a particularly unpleasant scourge on society. Actually, my fellows and I went by another name. The Repurposers. That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir. Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave university. That was the only paper with a bad grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add. Let me see. Of interest. Who drew the illustration for this article? Ah, yes, that was the reporter who exposed me. He sketched that right in front of me as I described the scene. Obviously, as time ticked on, I bitterly regretted what I'd done, claiming to have seen something I never truly saw. Foolish. Very foolish. Well, counsel for the defense, you may proceed to the cross-examination now. At once, my lord. All right. What the hell are we even going to get through this?
Hold it!
By moonlighting, you mean grave robbing, do you? Surely you only need to look at the graveyard scene and my appearance to gauge the answer to that. The lantern and spade. But who on earth would want to bury a dead body? Any major hospital. A hospital? In order to better understand the human body, the study of anatomy is crucial to medical science. There isn't a hospital in the world that has enough specimens to work with. Though obviously they can't openly express an interest in obtaining more by dubious means. As an aspiring scientists, we young research students had no money to work with, as I'm sure you can imagine. So we made surreptitious arrangements with the hospital via some of our medical student acquaintances. Medical student acquaintances, like Dr. Sid, we would never take anything of value from the graves. It was all for the furtherance of science, you see. That's what we all told ourselves every time we stole the grave into the graveyard at night, spade in hand. You realize body snatching is a serious crime. If you were caught, you could expect the gravest of consequences. We students were caught between the hammer and the anvil. We needed funds. We needed funds for research. Professor Hairbrain said exactly the same. I'm quite speechless at the apparent levity with which you revealed this abhorrent behavior. Well, if you wanted to know why I was there at Lowgate Cemetery, that's the reason. I never expected it to end the way it did. That I regret to this day. That strange happening at Lowgate Cemetery, which you now deny. Not entirely. I ran to the police at the time. You know, I was shaking like a leaf. They didn't believe a word of it. In fact, I was very nearly arrested myself. So you went to the papers instead. I started big with the London News, but unsurprisingly, they didn't want to know either. In the end, though, it was reporters from the gossip rags, the gutter press, that came to get my story. And it spread like a plague through the capital as gossip-hungry Londoners lapped up the tale. The story was in every single paper at the time, with the exception of some broadsheets. And yet only 2 or 3 of them actually interviewed me personally. Well, most of the accounts turned out to be very interpretive ghost stories. What about the article in the Daily Circus? A particular journalist found me at my dormitory. Don't know how, but he discovered my name. So I've recounted to him exactly what had happened that night. And from your description, he drew this illustration. Precisely. That's how I learned that the condemned man was the infamous professor. Because the reporter told me so. I had no idea myself, you see. Newspaper reporters are wont to snoop around in matters that don't concern them. But the scene portrayed in the illustration is accurate, then. Well... Hold it! What are you talking about? I think I explained already, didn't I? Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of the Barclay Prison, so it is renowned among the students at the university for being haunted by the ghosts of the condemned convicts. For some absurd reason, I was scared of the graveyard at night. As a result, I'm only too willing to believe that nonsense about the dead coming back to life. But you said you actually saw it. I said what I'd seen in my mind's eye. After all, resurrection is impossible, isn't it? You have to be unhinged to think otherwise. Unless, of course, you have some evidence that proves I encountered the professor that night. I don't know. Is there any material evidence that could show he really did see the professor? If we have anything at all, Mr. Naruhodo, I know. He's presented against that irritatingly backtracking statement of his. The point is, that night was a pivotal moment in my life. Hold it! That young woman being Madame Tussauds, of course. Precisely. I must say I didn't expect to run into her again like this 10 years later. As I've explained, I went by the name published in the article, and Omeka, I found the man. Yes, the article in the Daily Circus, I think he said. I was a poor student, with barely a penny to my name at the time. And the young lady put £5 in front of me. So you readily consented to having a waxwork of yourself made, and gave permission for it to be put on display. I did. I should sell what little I had to sell, I concluded. I remember now. I purchased something else for me that day. N'est-ce pas? Did you? No, I can't say I remember. Was it, madame? His camera. Ah. Is this the hint? Oh, yes. Made a point of taking it with me whenever I made an excursion to the cemetery. Took a camera with you, sir? To what end? To record the details of the bodies I disinterred. But I had no intention of ever visiting a graveyard again after that night, so I sold it. I see. But I still have it, monsieur. It is part of the special exhibit in my House of Horrors. I am very meticulous about such details. It is the Dispel's way. It would seem, then, that this is the very camera Mr. Drebber took with him to locate the cemetery the night in question. Yes, interesting.
Hold it!
Is that the update we need to make this work? This is the camera you had on you that night, and the camera has blood on it. In the Daily Circus. Yes, somebody informed the Dean that it was my name that appeared in the article, and carelessly let slip that night after night I was digging up graves. Hardly a model student, you might say. The university's reputation was execrably defiled, and I was expelled as a result. Mon Dieu, I had no idea. Having been run out of the university, you found employment in a somewhat specialist trade. Still a talented scientist, but using your talents in unique ways. You combine your knowledge of science with knowledge of stage magic to create various experimental machines intended to demonstrate never-before-seen technology. And you use those deceptive machines to trick government and private investors into giving you money. Professor Albert Harebrain was just your latest victim, wasn't he? Oh, whatever are you talking about? I have no recollection of doing anything of the sort. What's Drebber up to? Why would he suddenly change his tune and recant his claim? I wonder if perhaps it's because his circumstances have changed now. What circumstances? Well, if he admits to having seen the professor emerging alive from his grave 10 years ago, it will expose a secret in Dr. Sith's past that she would desperately want to hide. Yes, of course. If Drebber and Dr. Sith are working together now, and if Drebber were to betray her, there would be no reason for her to continue to cooperate. In that case, there's only one way around it. To prove he really did see it. Prove he really did see the professor's corpse coming back to the dead as he originally claimed. Yes, Mr. Naruhodo, exactly. I read your mind. Let's try it, shall we?
Objection!
False. That last statement would seem to be at odds somehow with this evidence. Yes, it is your task, counsel, to explain this somehow to the court, not the other way around. It just seems to jar, though, don't you think? Bad vibes. What I think is that this whole exchange has been extremely jarring, yes. Perhaps I need to reconsider this. What do we have to gain from this? This just proved that the waxwork was there. Oh, so, okay, it starts with the article then. Alright. Sorry, Mr. Drebber, but I don't believe that. Don't believe what? Your latest claim. You did see the professor on that night, 10 years ago. Oh dear. We seem to be at odds. But I was there, and you were not. I know what I didn't see. The illustration with this article was drawn based upon what you told the journalist that you witnessed. A figure emerging from a tomb, wearing an iron mask. Blech. Yes, when the killer was tried 10 years ago, it was decided in the closed court's ruling that the man would wear the mask to hide his identity. It wasn't to be removed even during his execution and subsequent burial. Not even the prison wardens were to see the man's face. And obviously the provision of this mask was not public knowledge. So, Mr. Drebber, as you've just heard... A lowly student at the University of London certainly wouldn't have known about the condemned man's mask. Unless you'd actually seen the professor that night. It's inconceivable that the artist would have included the mask in that illustration. I completely blank on that detail? Order. Well, Mr. Drebber, I made it completely bollocks that detail. I mean... Alright. Well, Mr. Drebber? It's a vile scene, isn't it? If you look closely. And as I've already been at pains to point out, I was utterly petrified. Which is why I had it in my head that I'd seen such a blood-curdling sight. Afterwards, I came to my senses and realized that I'd been mistaken. You're still saying you didn't see it? If you're stubbornly sticking to that story, witness, then amend your testimony to explain exactly how you think your eyes deceived you. Of course. Only too happy to oblige. Can't believe he's still not going to concede the point. What I in fact witnessed was a fellow Graverobber at work. Eh?
Hold it!
A fellow Graverobber? What are you talking about? Well, I wasn't the only one busy in the cemetery that night, you know. Other body snatchers were at work. Of course, when I saw one emerging from the hole he dug, my heart very nearly stopped. No, that's the terrifying sight I actually saw, you see. You're claiming it was just another student on equally insalubrious business as yourself. Many of the medical students would wear metal masks to protect them from the bacteria during dissections. Maybe the fellow was using such a mask to protect his anonymity. Wouldn't you say?
Objection!
But there's more to the story, isn't there? The article goes on to say, next second a gunshot rang out suddenly from behind. The bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest, whose breath had stilled once more. We might assume that the sexton discovered the miscreants at work, perhaps, and fired upon one of them. If a gravedigger had shot someone in the cemetery, I think it might have been rather big news, my lord. Ah, yes, well. I can only assume it was an embellishment bolted on later by the reporter. Oh?
Excuse me.
Madame de Spells. Don't take it out of Mr. Sholmes. Oh, la la, pardon. I was lost in my thoughts. It'd be fair to say that Mr. Drebber's last remark was significant to you in some way. I thought it was a little strange, that is all. How Monsieur Drebber could claim this now. If you don't mind me saying, madame, what are you talking about? Well, when I met you 10 years ago at your university dormitory, you recounted to me about your adventures in the cemetery, no? Including the gunshot. Stop. Oh. You might want to watch your tongue, you know.
Objection!
Have a care, Drebber. That's no way to speak to a lady. Gah. Please, Madame de Spells. Carry on. Of course. According to what Monsieur Drebber told me at the time, he did hear a gunshot from behind him, and the bullet hit the condemned man. I said nothing of the sort. No, you were very explicit about the details. About the mask the figure was wearing. And the blood that spattered over you when he was shot. Enough! Shut up, enough. Shut up, woman. You're making all this up. That will do. Mr. Drebber. Yes. You refute the account just given by Madame de Spells. I have no recollection of ever saying those things. Come on, do you really expect us to believe you? Control yourself, counsel. I will not permit baseless accusations in my courtroom. Right. Under these circumstances, I think it best that you supplement your testimony with a statement to clarify your position on this witness. Well, very well. There was...
Hold it!
Yet Madame de Spells has testified that you told her about both those details. Not true. I said nothing of the sort. 10 years have passed. Without material evidence to the contrary, you have no grounds on which to question the witness's word. Tell me, Madame de Spells. Oui? What exactly did Mr. Drebber say about the blood that apparently spattered on him? Alos, this is what he told me. All of a sudden he heard a very loud gunshot from behind his back. Oops, didn't mean to do that. The bullet hits a figure who was emerging from the tomb in the middle of the chest, in his heart. One dreadful sight after another. And since Monsieur Drebber was at the time facing toward the condemned man, the blood sprayed from the wound and spattered on his body. That is what he told me. So, not an experience you would ever forget, is it? Precisely, and I didn't forget it, because as I've already said, it never happened in the first place. He's clearly lying. Only had some evidence to prove it. We can't let him win, Mr. Naruhodo. So he mustn't overlook a single detail, no matter how small. That's the spirit. Oops. Now the camera comes out. Oh shit, Now,
Objection!
Mr. Drebber, do you remember this camera? But that is the camera for that fateful night. Yes, we borrowed it from the House of Horrors. It's the camera you took with you to the cemetery that night, Mr. Drebber. And is that supposed to be significant? This kind of camera is rarely seen in our homeland, so my colleague and I were keen to examine it closely. You notice the lens extends forward on the edge on the end of some bellows. Like this.
Hold it!
What's that? There, just on the bellows. It looks like a dark red stain. Ah! That's right. It's a rather conspicuous mark here on the bellows, in fact. Good lord, are you suggesting? Yes, my lord. It would appear to be a spatter of blood. Something that could be confirmed with a simple chemical test. Isn't that right, Dr. Sith? It would be difficult to determine if it was human blood and not blood of some animal. But he asked to test whether or not it's blood at all is simple enough. I propose that Madame Dispel's testimony was correct, that on the night in question 10 years ago, you were spattered with blood from the gunshot wound. Well, aye. That furthermore, you really did witness the condemned professor emerging from his tomb. Yeah. There's simply no way you could have forgotten such a traumatic experience. In other words, the only explanation is that you're trying to hide the fact you saw the professor that night.
Objection!
But why? Why would he want to do that? Well, not for his own gain, it would seem. Well, whose then? Who could benefit? Mr. Drebber is obviously lying in order to protect somebody. My goodness, he's shielding someone. Hey, look. Yes, my lord, and clearly, it's someone who doesn't want the truth about the professor coming back to life to be exposed. Well, Counsel, who is it then? Who is this witness trying to protect by lying about what he saw that night? Uh-oh, they're coming for me.
Take that!
The obvious answer is Dr. Sith. Sith? What? What do you mean? She's looking down on me again. Imagine if the convict who'd been sentenced to death was not in fact killed. Imagine if that was to come to light. What are you insinuating? And imagine if the convict in question was the country's most hated mass murderer. It was the professor. That would be an unprecedented scandal.
Objection!
This is beyond a joke. You need not point out that the dead cannot come back to life. What you're suggesting would mean that the execution never actually happened. Yes, it's exactly what it would mean.
Objection!
Once a man is sent to the gallows, he hangs. No one could escape. Not in Great Britain.
Objection!
But the fact is, there was a witness to the fact that a man did escape his hanging. If that were really true, Counsel, implications of misconduct would not stop the supervising coroner. It would taint the honor of the entire judiciary from the ground up. Giving us the eyes. And it's exactly because of those monumental repercussions that Dr. Sith would consent to any demand made of her by someone who threatened to expose the secret. If that meant being complicit in a crime. You mean... I mean that Dr. Sith wasn't collaborating in Mr. Drebber's wicked scheme. She was coerced into collaborating in order to protect her decade-old secret. She switched the dead body of Mr. Aspen with the waxwork model and fabricated the autopsy report. Ugh. Our first direct shot, leg. Lord Van Zeeks? Pray forgive my freshly filled hallowed chalice. And a whole raft of other discourtesies now. Oh, we're overflowing with discourtesy. This is a very powerful accusation, so that's a ton of discourtesy thrown out there. Goodness me. It's just the sort of tall tale Londoners would enjoy, I grant you. An executed killer rising from the dead. Scotland Yard cover-up. Conspiracy at the highest levels. So let me ask you one thing. What's that? Get ready to toss. If the dead man really had emerged from his tomb that night, only to be shot in the chest. Who pulled the trigger? And disposed of him forever? Well, I have no idea at the moment. We have too little information to work that out at present, I think. I couldn't agree more. The Old Bailey is no place for wild fantasies. And have you considered this, my learned Nipponese friend? Considered what? Do you realize just what a dangerous endeavor it would be to coerce this woman into such criminal activity? It's tantamount to declaring war on the entire British police force and judiciary. Quite. Hard to imagine any sum of money being offered for research could warrant it. To rely on some state deception when so much is at stake would be madness. Well, I suppose. And this was no petty crime either. The victim was murdered. A man who'd already invested money into the venture and would be instrumental in future profits, too. Yes, I had no reason to kill Mr. Aspen at all. We're forgetting that his death results in me receiving not a single penny. The court is already aware of the contract between myself and the victim, no? There is the contract, that's very true. We know the answer to this. We just haven't been prompted to figure it out yet. Oh, Aspen. Aspen was the reporter who ruined Drebber's life. The motive for this case runs deep, though. You can feel it. Using threats to force the head of the forensic investigation team to cooperate is extreme. Especially for a government grant he had no guarantee of receiving in the first place. If the research grant was the aim, taking Mr. Aspen's life would have made no sense anyway. Which means Mr. Drebber's motive wasn't money at all. He was just trying to kill Mr. Aspen. But why? What was his motive then? Your time is up, my learned friend. I'd say you have one last chance before the jury lose their patience with this charade. Let's see if you can back up your heady proposal, shall we? Toss. Good dodge. How do you explain why this engineer would throw all caution to the wind and threaten his own country? Now, at this point, I'm not prepared to listen to more of this outlandish conjecture without proof. So, counsel, present your evidence. All right. Who exactly was Mr. Aspen to Drebber? There's a connection there that no one's seen yet. And I'm going to have to present 2 pieces of evidence to show what it is. Oh? What's that? 2. Yes, my lord. The evidence that establishes a motive and explains why the witness wanted the victim dead is right here.
Take that!
It's this newspaper article, my lord. That was written 10 years ago. Every detail has been examined already. What could it possibly tell us? That drivel should never have been written. It's typically gutter-pressed nonsense that means nothing. Yes, on its own, it isn't particularly significant. However, considered alongside another piece of evidence, it will completely explain your motive for wanting Mr. Aspen dead. What are the evidence? Counsel, you will present your supplementary evidence without delay. The evidence which, when cross-referenced to the newspaper article, establishes a motive for the deed. Oh, we have the signature on the contract.
Take that!
It's this contract, my lord. Mr. Drebber, this is the contract you signed with Mr. Aspen. His signature hasn't changed in 10 years. Yes, that's right. The very document, in fact. That provides I had no reason to kill the man. No, I'm afraid not. What? There's something very significant about this newspaper article and the contract have in common. Really? And it's that common link. That shows very clearly why you were determined to kill Mr. Odie Asman. It seems the defense has uncovered something the rest of us have missed. So, my learned friend, point out what these two pieces of evidence have in common. What exactly is the link between this newspaper article and the contract?
Take that!
There it is. What these two pieces of evidence have in common is a signature. A signature? The signature on the illustration is that accompanies the 10-year-old article, and the signature on the contract belong to the same person. What? Ah! As the court has heard, this illustration was drawn 10 years ago by the newspaper reporter who found Mr. Drebber and interviewed him about his ordeal. If you look closely, the reporter's signature can be seen in the bottom right corner of the drawing. And if you look at the contract here, which was signed between the witness and the victim last year, you can clearly see Mr. Aspen's signature at the bottom. Let me see now. Good lord, yes, they're identical! In short, the journalist who drew the illustration and wrote the article published about Mr. Drebber 10 years ago was the victim of this case, Mr. Odie Asman.
Objection!
But explain to the court, why? Why would that constitute a motive for the witness to murder Asman? Well, if you think back, you'll remember that Mr. Drebber talked about that article in his testimony. Grave robbing, you say? Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir. Yes, well, I think I've suffered enough retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with a bad grace to identify me, unambiguously, I might add. And I gave up my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. At the time, you were a student at the University of London who dreamt of becoming a scientist. However, a single newspaper article changed your entire life. Mr. Aspen used to be a newspaper journalist, did he? He did, my lord. In fact, it's a widely held belief that Aspen managed to position himself at the heart of this criminal network, thanks to the many dubious connections he made during his time as a reporter. So you had to give up on your dream and leave a university. You lost everything. Eventually you found yourself working in the field of science, but only in the shadows. All because of that article, written by Mr. Aspen. Enough! Stop this endless drivel about my life. What? Explain yourself, Mr. Drebber. Yes, it's true. I had to leave the university as a result of that article. But it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. What do you mean? Almost every student of science in the faculty was too poor to actually conduct any research. They struggled on with the hypotheses anyway. We all did. Only to have them taken by vultures. Sooner or later, you knew your ideas would be stolen and patented by some wretch or other after all. But gracious! Making a name for yourself as a scientist in a climate like that was a miracle only a select few geniuses could ever hope to achieve. Personally, I wasn't one of those geniuses. It was hardly a wrench. Being forced out of the university because of Blowgate was the best thing that could have happened to me.
Objection!
Mr. Drebber, do you genuinely believe that? Of course I do. Who's better placed to know whether or not I possess a talent for science than me? I'm sorry to say that your words don't ring true at all. How dare you? And I have evidence to prove it. How are you in a position to say anything about me? I don't know you, madam. Fine, if you think you have evidence, go ahead. Show it. What could you possibly have to disprove the idea that I was happy to leave university because I lacked talent? This, obviously.
Take that!
Do you remember this, Mr. Drebber? We found it at your workshop. Is that a Royal Society trophy for excellence in science? What exactly is this trophy, Counsel? It's the greatest honor that can be bestowed on the young scientist, my lord. There is no higher accolade. It recognizes emerging talent and promises a bright future. Good gracious! Your prospects for the future were excellent, weren't they, Drebber? Because even then, you were a genius in your field. Ugh. But you lost everything. You had no more future. Your talents would go to waste. All as a result of this one newspaper article. I don't know when you realized who Mr. Aspen was. When it dawned on you that he was the same journalist who 10 years ago ruined your life. It's abundantly clear that you had no intention of forgiving the man. The truth is... Finally, it's going to fold. Oh? Sit? Fine. Clearly this has run its course now. What? I admit it. All of it. Eh? What? What are you doing? It's exactly as the Japanese man said. I was coerced into going along with this man's plot to murder the victim. On the condition that he kept my dietary secret from 10 years ago. No. Good Lord! Dr. Sip, do you realize what you're saying, woman? Oof. It's all true. That day, when I arrived at the Crystal Tower and saw the birdcage, my heart nearly stopped beating. That memory from a decade ago that I'd done my best to bury deep inside myself. It was the professor again, staring me up in the face. And then, before I had a chance to react, I noticed something else. There was a note tucked inside the model's jacket. Dr. Sith, you will go along with my plan. I'm someone who knows the truth about what really happened that night, 10 years ago. He had to steal the waxwork to successfully bait Courtney into doing this. All the instructions were there in the note. Every detail was meticulously written out. I had no choice but to do what it said. I made the necessary alterations to the scene and fabricated the autopsy report as instructed. There was really no other choice. It had to be done to protect the judiciary. I can only apologize now. Well, damn. Why on earth would you buckle now? Well, there's no point trying to hide it anymore, is there? I would have done anything to stop it coming out, even collaborated in a murder. But the great lie about that execution 10 years ago has been exposed. Whatever happens, I'm finished. So then, Mr. Drebber, what do you have to say about that? Your accomplice has submitted everything. What do you have to say about this? Surely it goes without saying. You admit your part in it too, then? Of course not. I admit nothing. At all. What? Have you forgotten that the kinesis machine was ripped to shreds by an explosion? Short of me admitting to a crime, if there's no possible way for you to prove I did anything wrong. No! Ora, ora, ora. Whenever this man says I admit everything, he planned to expose my secrets. I went along with his plan. And Lord Van Zeeks. Yes? I hope you'll accept my apologies. What happens next is in your hands, of course. I've heard more than enough now. I hereby present the final findings of this court. This trial is not the proper forum in which to pursue the alleged wrongdoings of Mr. Drebber. The defendant is Professor Albert Harebrain. Very true. It had slipped my mind. Isn't he one of your closest friends? And we got kind of caught up in some serious business. As court has heard, Dr. Sith has admitted to the allegations brought by the defense, thereby absolving the defendant of any possible guilt. Well, we win. You mean? At the present time, it is the conclusion of this court that the defendant was not involved in any wrongdoing. Does the prosecution have any objection? None, my lord. Well, congratulations, Mr. Naruhodo. You've proven Professor Harebrain's innocence. We're going to leave it here, though. Without further ado, then, the adjudication. Unless the prosecution or defense have any other matters to discuss. I don't know. This doesn't feel quite right. Why did Dr. Sith suddenly admit to it like that? Is everything alright, Mr. Naruhodo? Like you said before, the way the trial is set to end now, the judge will certainly deliver a verdict of not guilty. Is that really what we want? What the defense should be pushing for now is...
Objection!
This feels like a but must. The defense objects to the trial ending at this time, my lord. I beg your pardon? We demand one final testimony. Ooh! What? You do realize I'm about to adjudicate in your favor, I presume? What are you playing at now, my Nepalese friend? Why would you want to obstruct the conclusion of the trial at this point? No defense lawyer in his right mind would do that. Mr. Naruhodo, what exactly are you thinking? The truth, the whole truth, and a way to bring it all out into the open. Right. Yes, in his hindsight. Yes, one word of warning before I go. If in the course of the trial this afternoon you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand? Do not falter, whatever may come to pass. I'm sure Mr. Sholmes knew. He must have deduced that this would happen. Yes, I'm here in court to advocate for my client, and to secure an acquittal. Obviously. But that's not all. I believe that I have a duty to the court. Pursue the whole truth of the case until every last detail is laid bare. And that is why the defense calls for further testimony from Dr. Sith. Testimony from me. About what? About the nature of your collaboration with Mr. Enoch Drebber. In case it's escaped your attention, I've already admitted to everything I did. The whole truth has already been revealed. So stop wasting everybody's time. As his lordship made very plain, your client will get the acquittal you wanted for him. There's simply no point for protracting this business further without another tedious cross-examination.
Objection!
Oh? Toss. Pray forgive my careless handling of that hallowed bottle. I slipped. Oh? That's what you call it? What is your objection, Lord Van Zieks? Prosecution also calls for supplementary testimony from the witness. Don't be stupid. If there is more to this case than has been yet come to light, then I will join my learned friend pursuing the facts until the bitter end. Yo, what? Genuine shock, Lord Van Zieks. That was a wrong Naruhodo voice there. Lord Van Zieks. This is most irregular, to say the least. However, as the prosecution also calls for it, I will uphold the request. Oh, sit. You will testify for the court, explaining the full extent of your involvement in the murder apparently committed by Mr. Drebber. Oh boy. Very well. The waxwork plot. Oh boy. Next time.